So, what's the best budget camera for you? In this video, we're gonna look at cameras that deliver high quality photos and video while staying on a budget. Also, I'm gonna leave links in the description down below for the best pricing on the camera gear that we talk about today, so make sure to get a good deal. First up on this list is the DJI Pocket Osmo because it is the most affordable camera on this list, but also the most unique. The Osmo's main selling point is the built-in stabilizer, which will give you very smooth movement, therefore allowing you to get better shots than you otherwise would with a beginner skill level. This is definitely a beginner camera. The specs aren't anything too crazy. It's a 12 megapixel sensor, which does give you photos, but at a very slow rate. I would not pick this up for photography. I do, however, recommend this mainly for video. It records 4K and HD at up to 60 frames per second with a special mode that records full HD at 120 frames per second for 5 times slow motion. The autofocus is fairly accurate and reliable, but I do find it struggles when I'm a little bit too close to the camera. However, I think that's more of a lens issue than a software issue. The software is what really sets this camera apart because this camera becomes supercharged when you connect it to the DJI Mimo app, and it gives you a variety of interesting features. For one, it allows you to use your phone as a monitor and quickly change all of your camera settings using your phone. Number two, it has a really nifty feature which allows you to simply draw a square around a subject or an object that you're tracking, and the camera will follow the subject for you using panning and tilting. But the coolest feature about the DJI Mimo app is that it will actually edit your clips for you using one of the editing templates the app provides. This is a huge time saver, especially if you don't know how to edit. However, there are two downsides to the DJI Osmo Pocket. First of all, it does not have very good internal audio. You can attach an external audio mic, but you need a $20 to $30 adapter, and I do think that adapter is very much worth the money. And the second thing is, the battery life is pretty small. You'll get at the most 2 hours of runtime, but you can easily plug in a USB Type-C power bank and run this camera all day. If you're looking for a budget option and you're relatively new to cameras, this is a great first step, and I highly recommend it. But for a lot of you, this may not feel like a proper camera because of the small sensor size or the lack of a zoom lens. And for you guys, I have the Nikon B500. This camera has an amazing zoom lens, but it's still affordable. This is an amazing hobby level camera. The most impressive thing about this camera is the lens. It has a zoom range from 22 millimeters all the way to 900 millimeters, and basically allows you to shoot anything that's far away, almost as far away as a mile. This is great for sports photography, live arena concerts where the stage is really far, and even wildlife photography. For photos, it shoots 7.4 frames per second, which is the same speed as most starter DSLRs. Video-wise, it does full HD up to 30 frames per second, 720p at 60 frames per second, and it does do 120 frames per second for 5 times slow motion, but it does that in 480p, which is potato quality. Personally, I would skip it. Now, there is no 4K in this camera, but personally, on a hobby level, I don't really think you need 4K. The B500 only has a 16 megapixel 1-inch sensor, so expect the quality to be similar to a point-and-shoot or a really nice cell phone. Personally, I think at a hobby level, that is more than enough. The B500 does not have a manual mode. This camera is really meant to be a point-and-shoot camera. It's well built, but made entirely of plastic, so do not drop this camera. And it doesn't come with a rechargeable battery. You have to use AA batteries instead. The B500 is an excellent hobby level camera that comes with an amazing zoom lens that makes it a better deal than its competitors, but it is a budget camera and won't really compare to a proper DSLR. If you want a camera that gets you as close as possible to a proper DSLR while staying on a budget, the next camera is exactly what you're looking for. And that camera is the Canon T7, also known as the world's most popular DSLR. Why? Because it's the most affordable. The sensor is exactly the same sensor that you would normally find in a much more expensive camera like the Canon M50 or the Canon 80D, which is upwards of $600 to even $800. And like all Canon cameras, it has great colors right out of the box. So for casual users who just want to take great photos and videos without the extra hassle of editing and making it look good, this is a great choice. However, I should say I'm a big fan of editing, and if you want to get the most out of your camera gear, you have to learn how to edit. The photo shooting speed is 3 frames per second, and it comes with a very accurate and reliable autofocus. This camera's shooting speed should be fine for about 80% of casual shooting like vacations and social media posts, but it will struggle with something that is fast moving like sports or your pets. The video in this camera is decent enough for casual use, but if you're an avid video shooter, this will not be good enough for you. In video mode, it does full HD at 24 and 30 frames per second. There is no 4K, but once again, this is not good enough for a serious video shooter. You will definitely want more, and the autofocus in video mode just completely falls off a cliff. It is not good, not even serviceable. This is not a video camera at all. I really recommend this mainly for photos. If you're someone that shoots a lot of video, you definitely want to upgrade to a higher tier Canon. My personal favorites are the Canon M50 or the Canon 80D. And design-wise, it's well built, and the feel of the camera and the button layout is simple and intuitive. It's a great choice for someone who's a beginner or not very tech savvy. The one downside is that the screen on the back is fixed, making high and low angle shots a bit tedious. The T7 basically gives you everything a proper camera would for photos without the pro features, mainly to keep the cost down. So no external audio jack or stabilization, but it does have Wi-Fi. Overall, this is the strongest budget camera on this list, and it's definitely my choice for someone that's either a beginner or someone who's really passionate about photography and wants a quality camera. What's up guys, it's Future River here, and after I made this video, I found a camera that I just had to include on this list, so I'm recording this section to tell you about said camera, because this camera is so unique, and that is the Sony ZV-E10. And currently, this camera is my top pick for best budget camera. It gives you the photo and video capabilities of a much more expensive and a much more pro style camera. But in reality, it's a pretty affordable package that has very simple controls, specifically for beginners and people just kind of getting into cameras. They have taken out a lot of the confusing dials and buttons that you're kind of like, what do I do with this? And they've given you a really simplified button layout. Plus, on top of that, it has a really big record button near the front of the camera, so you don't have to dig around the back of the camera when you're filming yourself. And it has a side articulating screen on the back, so you can see yourself while filming. To be honest, that is a game changer, especially for a budget camera. Also, it has the same APS-C side sensor that you would normally find in a pro style camera, like the Sony a6600. This camera is going to give you that higher tier, more professional look because of that sensor size. This camera gives you the exact same, and I mean the exact same specs as an expensive pro style camera. For example, this camera has 4K, which is really rare in this price range, and it does 4K really well. It's downsampled from 6K, it's sharp and vibrant. It does 4K at 30 frames per second with a teeny tiny crop, but at 24 frames per second, it has full sensor readout, so you're gonna get that full 4K glory. Plus, it has super sharp, and I mean really good looking, full HD from 24 all the way to 120 frames per second for 5 times slow motion. If you're someone that likes slow motion, this camera is going to do really well for you. Plus, I have to mention this, the autofocus on Sony cameras is god level, and this camera is no different. It is without a doubt the most reliable autofocus and the fastest autofocus in the camera industry since 2019. On top of that, it has the best internal audio I've ever seen on really any camera. The internal audio sounds almost as good as a shotgun mic, and this way you can keep your camera setup small and nimble. That's exactly what I love about this camera. It's teeny, it's about the size of a point and shoot, but it gives you the horsepower, the raw specs of a proper pro style camera. And if you're someone that really wants to take their photography or filmmaking to the next level, this camera is going to give you plenty of horsepower. But if you want to take this camera, or really any camera, and get the best possible results from it, there's only one way to do that, and that is to properly learn how to use it. So if you're interested in learning how to make your videos go from looking like this to this, and your photos from looking like this to this, I put together a free training of 7 simple secrets that will dramatically improve your photos and videos today. These simple secrets include things like frame rates, lens choices, camera angles, and how to get the most out of the gear that you're using right now, even if that gear is a smartphone. I included a link in the description down below, so make sure to check that out. With that being said, guys, I will either see you in the course or in the next video, but I hope to see you guys in both. Peace.